Welcome to the Church360 Ledger Reconciliation and Reports webinar. Today I'll be your host, and my name is Jordan Bogart. I'm a software support technician here at Concordia Technology Solutions. I've been here for just over 7 years now, and you can see there's my contact information if you would like to get in touch with me directly. There's my email and phone number both there. I really just appreciated the opportunity to serve our churches and help out not only with Church360 Ledger, but all of our products. So we have quite a few different products out there, and we do support on quite a few, quite a lot of products here. So I do want to mention that if you have any questions, all phones and microphones have been muted. So if you have questions, you should have a questions window that you can type any questions you may have over the course of the webinar. Feel free to ask them just as soon as they come to mind. I may not answer them right then and there, but my manager here today is also with me, and he is Rod Kiles, and he's going to be helping me answer some questions here over the course of the webinar as well. So he'll be helping us out with questions. I'll be working on questions. I'll be answering some questions during the webinar, but we will also have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar here too, where I'll answer any questions we didn't quite make it to. So plenty of opportunity to ask any questions along the way. Well, let's actually talk about what we're going to be covering here today. So just kind of a quick breakdown of the structure of the class first off. So right now, that's what we're doing here is our overview. Then we're going to hop into our, start our discussion here, just sort of a brief kind of a discussion about reporting inside of Church360 Ledger. Then we'll go, jump to spot there. Well, then we'll have an intermission, and brief 5-minute intermission, and then we'll hop back into our discussion to kind of round things out. There will be a quiz here near the end of the webinar. I don't want you guys to stress about it, though. We are not grading you, nothing to worry about, just to kind of see if what I said is kind of stuck with you here. And then finally, we will get into our Q&A session. So that's just kind of our structure of today's webinar. All right, so what are we actually going to be talking about? Well, we're going to be focusing today on reports. So a couple different reports we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at the general ledger report, our balance sheet, our chart of accounts, and I have the balance sheet here twice. So that should say statement of income and expense. I apologize for that. That should say statement of income and expense, the second one. So general ledger, statement of income and expense, chart of accounts, and then balance sheet. Then we're going to go ahead and talk about our bank account reconciliation. We're going to talk about a few other reports in here as well. Not really reports, but some other items that are kind of related to reports as well. And then we'll also, of course, discuss the event log. Okay, and then we'll hop into our quiz and go into questions and answers. All right, so with all that in mind, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and come over to Ledger here. So right now I'm on just a demo Church360 Ledger site. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my webcam here too so we can just focus on what's on screen. Now just a few general notes about reports just kind of overall. When we talk about reports inside of Church360 Ledger, it's important to understand that reports are just for the book that you are currently in. So if you have multiple books and you have like your book selector up here, you can pick between multiple books. If you have multiple books, it's not this, the reports that you're going to run are just going to be for the book that you're currently in. So that is something you want to keep in mind whenever you're starting to do reports, especially if you have multiple books. Okay. And the other thing is about reports is you do have to have rights to reports. You do have to have rights, to the various accounts you're trying to run reports for in order to run reports. So that's another thing to bear in mind as far as permissions goes, thinking back to our first webinar here. Okay, so let's talk about reports, and let's start off here with going up to the reports button up here, and we're going to choose the general ledger report here. So let's choose the general ledger here first. Okay, so here we have the general ledger report. So we're going to see quite a bit of information going on here first off, but I want to direct our attention up here to the top left corner, top right corner first. And we look here at the top right corner, it's going to say, right now you see it says June of 2021. Now this is where we can select what date range we're wanting to look at this report for. So, we can select any of these years. If you want to look at an entire year, you can choose a specific quarter of a year. You can choose a specific month, or if you want to specify an exact date range, you can click here and you can put in the exact date range that you want to work with. So let's go ahead and just look at 2021 here right now. Let's just go ahead and select that. So we're looking at all of 2021. Okay. So now that I've selected what year I want to look at, I can go through here and I can take a look at this report. So this is showing me, up through June 30th. That's when we last had transactions in here. So you're going to see the dates of all the transactions. This is going to go from the latest transaction in the date range to the earliest. Then you're going to see the type of transaction this line, the particular line you're looking at, is talking about. So you can see journal entries, transfers, payments, checks, deposits, all those different types there. You'll notice here as well, if you click on this type drop-down list, you can choose what types of transactions you want to look at. So if you're trying to get kind of like just a check register, you could go ahead and filter this to just look at checks, and then you would see only your check transactions. You wouldn't see any other types of transactions that way. You can kind of, again, pick and choose what you're wanting to find here in the types. We'll go ahead and right now just stick with all. Next up, you have the check number column. Now, obviously, that's only really relevant on check transactions because that's the only thing you assign check numbers to, but you can see that right there. Then you also have your payees, and of course, payees are people you pay, and you can filter as well by your payee. So if you were trying to find maybe just all the transactions for maybe a particular employee, like let's say I'm trying to find all the transactions here for Barbara. Well, I can select just Barbara, and then I'm seeing just her, just transactions that are for her. So that's a good way you can kind of filter this as well. And you can use any combination of these different people. Now, a really nice part about this is you might notice this button here. Kind of looks like a chain link. And if I move my mouse over, you see it says Group by Payee. Well, if I click Group by Payee, this is going to organize my transactions. And on top, it's going to show me all my transactions that don't have a payee assigned. But if I scroll down, then I'm going to see all my transactions by each payee. So here's everything for Ameren Electric. Here's everything for Barbara Trison. Here's everything for Best Buy Geek Squad. And you can see it's all organized for you by payee then at that point. Okay, so that's how you can organize your general ledger by payee. You'll notice then the next thing we have is by account. This is showing us, each account that we have here in the general ledger report. This is showing us every single account we have, and again, we can filter just to look for particular accounts. So maybe I want to see just things that were for the building fund here, and then I can see, okay, well, here's all the transactions that involve the building fund, and you can see those. And again, so you can pick exactly what you're looking for that way. And it has the same option Payees does. You can group, instead of grouping by payee, you could group this general ledger by account. So then you're seeing here's all the line items for state income tax, federal income tax, Social Security. You go through here and you can see all these different line items for these different accounts. Okay. Then you have a memo line here. Of course, if you wrote any memos on any transactions, they're going to appear here. And then you see the amount of the transaction, where lines in the red here are going to represent a decrease in that account, and lines that have numbers in the black are going to represent an increase in that particular account. So very simple to go through and read this general ledger. Now, one more thing I do want to point out here is that you might have noticed a few transactions that kind of have this reddish pink background. These are voided transactions. So your general ledger shows both active and voided transactions both. You're going to see both of them on here. So the voided transactions are going to have this reddish pink background here. But let's say, for example, we didn't want those voided transactions on here. Well, we do have the option to export this out to Excel. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to click Export to Excel here. It's going to show up in my downloads. If I open this, this is going to come up here in Excel, and I can enable my editing. So this is what your report would look like here out in Excel. Now let's say, like I said, let's say we wanted to go ahead and remove those voided transactions from my general ledger. So I'm going to get rid of this top section here first. I'm just going to highlight that and delete it. And then I can highlight my entire table here. So highlighting the entire table. And then what I could do is I could go to Data, Sort, and then I could sort by voided. So I'm seeing all my voided transactions up here. And then what I can do is I can just go here, find all those line items and highlight the rows. And then just simply, once they're all highlighted, right-click, delete. And then I can go back to sorting by date. And there we go. Now I have a general ledger. Now this is going in reverse order. This is going from oldest to latest. Excuse me, oldest to most current. But I could go ahead and again, if I wanted that in reverse order, I could just flip that there. So then I have my general ledger sorted by without my voided transactions included. So very easy to manipulate this once you get it out to Excel here. So pretty easy to put together. Okay, so that's how the general ledger would work. So moving on from the general ledger, I'm going to just close that out. So that was our general ledger report. Let's take a look at the statement of income and expense next. So I'm going to click on the reports icon and we're going to choose income and expense. All right, and I'm going to go back to a prior year where I have some budgets here. Let's do 2018. I know there's a lot of activity in this account in 2018. All right, so this is the income and expense report. And I actually should have really pointed out here, with the income and expense report, one major difference than all the other reports is because this uses budget figures, we can select a month and year, but we can't select a specific date. And that's because, again, it uses budget figures. So because it uses budget figures, we can't go down to a month because the budget figures you enter are going to be, broken down to the very smallest state into particular months. So you can't kind of split that further then. So this is why you can only choose a month and year here. You can't do a month, day, and year. And typically you don't need to with an income and expense report. So what is the income and expense report actually showing us? Well, first off here, you can see, looking at our lines here, we have our accounts, we have our budget for whatever time period we're looking at. Remember that the budget is kind of what we expected to earn or spend over the course of the time period we chose. The actual, again, over the time period we chose, and that's what we actually earned or actually spent, depending if we're looking at income or expense, of course. The percentage of budget we've used. So basically, this is comparing our budget to our actual and saying this is the percentage of budget we've used up. Typically, with income, it's kind of a, if we're seeing we're under 100%, that means we didn't quite bring in as much as we thought. Whereas with an expense, it's good to see that you're under budget. Then it's kind of saying, oh, we spent less than we thought. So kind of depending on what you're looking at, the higher or lower figures can be good or bad. And then the remaining is saying how much of our budget we have remaining if we were to take our budget and subtract the actuals. This is saying how much we had left over then at that point. Okay, so that's what this is actually showing us. Now, you might notice here in the account section, next to these underlined items, these underlined items are categories. You'll notice there's an arrow there, so you can expand or collapse these different areas. So maybe really with ministry, I don't need to see the individual accounts under it. I just need to see in general how much income did we have for ministry. So if I click this, I can collapse this column, this section, and now I'm just seeing the total for that ministry category. So anywhere you see one of these arrows, you can click on it to expand or collapse those different categories. So just depending on what you need for your report. Now, of course, you can print it out directly from here. You do print here. Here's what you're going to get on your print preview right here. This is what you would see. But, with this, a lot of the times, can you, and I see, a question here, for example, can you compare June of this year to June of last year? Not directly within Ledger, but again, that's why we offer that export to Excel option. You get a lot of different ways you can do that. So, you can compare different time periods. Let me show you probably one of the more common asks we get is, well, I want to compare my year-to-date to my annual figures. I want to compare my year-to-date actuals with my year-to-date with my annual actuals, and my year-to-date budget with my annual budget. So what I could do here is, let's say again, I'm looking at 2018, and I'm going to export this out to Excel. So this is our annual 2018 budget. So I'm going to go in here and enable editing. I'm going to clean up a few things, get rid of this header section, and I'm going to rename this just to, let's go ahead and call, we'll actually leave this as is, budget 2018, actual 2018. Okay, so I have those there. And then what I could do is, let's say I'm going to go ahead and run this through June. And so I'm going to go ahead and set this to June, through June of 2018. Okay, and then I could export this out as well. Okay, and then this is, you can see this is our kind of our year-to-date then at that point. And I'll get rid of that. So then what I can do is I can go ahead and I can go back to this first one here, and I can just go ahead and copy this, and then I can do insert copied cells. Here I highlight the column that I want to put in here. I'm going to insert copied cells. So then I have my annual budget and then my year-to-date budget, and then I can do the same thing with the actuals. I can go back here and grab my actuals, copy that, insert copied cells, and then there you go. So I have here's my total budget, here's my total budget for the year, here's my total actuals for the years, here's my year-to-date budget, and here's my year-to-date actuals. So you can get that comparison there too. Another really neat thing about when you take the statement of income and expense out to Excel is you'll notice that all these bolded numbers here are actually formulas in Excel. You can see it up here. What that means then is, if you're trying to see, like, well, if we maybe adjusted a figure here or there and change, and if maybe we said, okay, maybe we have a little bit more in our budget, how would that affect everything else? So let's say maybe for our men's ministry, we're going to say, well, instead of having just $375, let's say, what would happen if we had $1,000 here? And if I go ahead and type that in and press enter, you can see all the figures that this was, we can see the men's ministry was under these different categories. These are all revised when I make that change. Now, that doesn't flow back into Ledger, but this is a good way to experiment and kind of update things and see, okay, well, if I did this, how would it affect this? So that's how we can kind of work with our income and expense report. We can kind of combine things using Ledger. You can try things out here in Excel, because when you update the accounts, it's going to go ahead and update your budget figures. So there's a lot you can do here with this income and expense report. Okay, so that's the income and expense. Let's go ahead and back out of this here for now, if it's going to cooperate with me. Let's go ahead and close that. Okay, there it is. There we go. All right, so that's our income and expense report. Let's go ahead next and let's talk about the chart of accounts report. So the chart of accounts report, what it's showing us here is basically our starting balance and our ending balance on each of our accounts, and kind of the debits and credits in between, and showing us kind of how we got from point A to point B. Now again, first off, you'll want to select your date range, and you can see now we're back to being able to pick down to a specific date. So if you're trying to get a very specific report, this is the way you can do it. Let's go back to 2021 for this though. So we're going to go ahead and enter into 2021. Okay. And so the chart of accounts report, as I mentioned, it's going to be a good way to see how you got from point A to point B. So going through here, again, you're going to see your different categories, and your categories, again, just like the statement of income and expense, are going to have these arrows here. So you can kind of expand and collapse these different areas to, if I just need to see, well, maybe I really just need to see, here's the total of my checking category, or here's my total of my savings category. You can kind of expand or collapse this. This is going to have every account type on the report. So you're going to see every single account in your system on this report, including restricted funds. Now, when we look at this here, okay, so I'm seeing my starting balance, ending balance, you're seeing again from the start of whatever time period to the end of whatever time period. And then you're seeing the debits and credits on this. Now, because you have these debits and credits here, this also really works great as a trial balance report. So if you want to run a trial balance, this is the place you could come to do that. The chart of accounts report is going to be a great way to do that. Again, though, you can go ahead and print this out just like you would, just like you would here. So if I print this out, just like it worked for the statement of income and expense, also works for the general ledger, you'd be able to have a printable version of your report. All right. But, again, maybe we want to do some additional work out here in Excel. Maybe we want to go ahead and sum up these debits and credits to do that trial balance. Well, again, Excel is going to kind of come to the rescue here. So we're going to click Export to Excel. And again, we're going to get our chart of accounts report. This is going to open this up here. And we have our chart of accounts report. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just delete that top row. Again, just when we're actually working with the data here in Excel, it's going to go ahead and it's going to be a little bit easier if you go ahead and export out those different rows. Okay, export out, but delete out those different rows. So what we could do here is if we want to go ahead and check out our different, our different balances here across all our accounts, what we could do is we can go ahead and just sum up all of our balances here. So we can go through here and we can sum at each area, to do our trial balances. So what we can do is do a quick click. We can go ahead and sum. Go ahead, do a sum, and we'll do a sum of all these figures here. And then we'll do a sum here. Okay, so that's for assets. And then you would just repeat that same process with each one of the different categories. And by doing that, your debits and credits should end up equaling out then. So you'll get your debits and you'll get your different debit and credit totals to balance out. And then that's going to be a good trial balance report to make sure that you're in balance. You would go ahead and just sum all those up. And then when you're done, you can sum the debit totals and credit totals up to reach your trial balance then. Now, one other thing I do want to mention here about this report out here in Excel is if you delete rows, let's say a lot of the times I hear from a lot of churches, well, with our restricted funds, we don't really like to show those, on we don't really want to show those on this report. We don't want to show the income and expense for those. We just want to see the balances here. Well, if you don't want those, you can delete rows here out of Excel, but it will have a little bit of an effect here on your overall report. So let's say I went ahead and I took these out. I just want the restricted expense category out. Well, remember that this is under a category. So if I will go ahead and delete this here, let me go ahead and do that, delete. It is going to affect your balance, and you'll see this will be affected here because all of a sudden this is not reflecting, the formulas aren't reflecting here. So you do need to be a little bit careful when you're doing that. So let me go ahead and just undo some of this here. Oops, and just undo some of this. There we go. So you do want to be careful about that. If you're going to go ahead and remove those, you want to make sure that you're adjusting your formulas here out in Excel to make sure that you're not accounting for those rows anymore. So just one thing to keep in mind when you delete rows. So just be careful about that one. Okay, so that's our chart of accounts report. All right, so next up, we can talk about our balance sheet. Now, the balance sheet is really going to be pretty similar to our chart of accounts report, but it's only going to look at our assets and our liabilities. It's not going to be a report that is going to look at any income and expense here, just your assets and liabilities. And you do get your assets less liabilities down here. So you see this actually has the same columns as the chart of accounts report, but that's one difference is, yes, you just have your assets and liabilities. The other difference is all your restricted funds are just rolled up into the accounts that they're under. So instead of seeing each individual restricted fund under your central trust checking, we're just seeing central trust checking as a whole. So this is a good, this is your balance sheet report. You'd be able to use it for that. So again, you can, just like the statement of income and expense, you can roll these up if you want to just see a total of the category. Your date selector is right here, and this is where you can go ahead and select what date range you're wanting to look at here. And I'm going to go ahead and also have the ability to print this out, of course, and of course you can also export this to Excel. So again, a lot of good use for these different reports. Depending on what you need at your church, again, you can get it all through these different reports. So that's our balance sheet. All right. Now, there's a few other things, again, that aren't necessarily under this reports banner, but are good. It's good information to have. And I want to go ahead and take a quick look at our budgets and our payees before we go ahead and go to our intermission here. So I'm going to go ahead and come over here to the budget section. Does our version of Excel affect how the exporting works? It does export out, I believe, in the XLSX format. So if you have a really old version of Word, I can't remember what XLSX first version. I want to say it was Word 2007, not Word, but Office 2007 that XLSX wasn't introduced. If you had a really old version, you may not be able to open those files, but typically most computers out there these days are going to have beyond Office 2007 to be able to view those reports. So the answer is yes, but only if you have a really old version. Okay. So next up here is our budgets, like I said, our budget screen here. And we did talk about our budget screen during the first webinar. I'm going to go ahead and just do a brief show of this here too, because again, this kind of works as a can work as a budget report for you here as well. I'm not going to get into all the details about kind of entering our budget right now, because again, we did cover that during our first webinar on Ledger. But again, you can select the year that you're looking at here, and you can see your budget report here. So then if you're wanting to present a budget report, you can always export this out to Excel. Okay. So when I export it out to Excel, this is the format you would get for a budget report, and you'd be able to present this then, as a budget report showing here's how we have everything broken down. So you'd have your annual totals here, and then you have a month-by-month breakdown of it over here as well. Now, one really nice part about the exporting this budget to Excel is, let's say you prepared your budget out in Excel and you want to just import it in to Ledger. Well, you can do that. So if I were to go over here and copy my just the portion of my table that has the budget figures, okay, copying just that, then I come over to here, I can paste this in, and this is going to then paste in the budget figures that I had in Excel into my budget here, and then I could save that. If you are kind of more inclined to work in Excel, you just feel more comfortable working out there, absolutely you can do that. You can go ahead and export a blank budget sheet out here just by taking this blank year that you have and exporting it out, working there, and once you're done, just go ahead and copy it back into Ledger and then click Save Changes down here at the bottom to save your changes. So that's how you could do kind of a budget import, and this is also a good budget report. Now, the other area I wanted to show just briefly is here under payees. So payees are the people that you pay at your church. It's organizations that you pay. There's a lot of different ways payees are used. Now, if you're searching for a particular payee, just start typing their name. Like I can type in my name because I'm a payee here in the system, and hey, there I am. Now, when you look at a payee, you'll notice there's also a history button next to them. So if I click this history button, this is going to show me that within the time period I've selected, here's all the different accounts, the debits and credits on the different accounts that I've worked that have been used for me. This is a great summary report for your payees. Now, if you're wanting more of a transaction breakdown, that's where the general ledger is going to come into play. It works just a little bit better for that because here you could go through and you can say, all right, well, I just want to see maybe just the transactions for me. And here's all the transactions for me at that point. Whereas the payee section is going to show you for the summary history then at that point. So kind of two different options for what you might want to show for a payee. All right, well, this brings us to just about our halfway point in our training here today. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up a timer here. So we're going to take a quick 5-minute intermission. I'm going to go ahead and pull that up here. So we will see you back in 5 minutes. Okay, so that's going to wrap up our intermission here. Let's go ahead and get back to it. And now we're going to go ahead and talk about the bank account reconciliation. All right, so with the bank account reconciliation, what we're going to start off here is in our home screen for Ledger. And I got to that just by clicking this orange $sign button up here. Now, with our bank account reconciliation, it's going to require that you have a couple, it's going to require the main thing you're going to need is your bank statement for the month that you're trying to reconcile. And I do recommend that you just try to reconcile 1 month at a time. If you try to reconcile multiple months at a time, sometimes that can get a little messy, and I've definitely seen some people kind of get off track and just really have some trouble when they try to do too much at once. So my recommendation is just go 1 month at a time. That's going to be the best way to kind of pinpoint if you have any problems. This is where you can kind of pinpoint and find out where those problems are. That's kind of the whole point of reconciliation, is making sure everything is accurate. Okay, so you're going to want the bank statement for the month that you are wanting to reconcile. Now, one of the most common issues I see when doing bank account reconciliation is not getting the right date range set. Now, to figure out what the right date range is, what you want to do is you want to look at your bank statement, and the trick I always like to use is to find my lowest check number. My lowest check number on my bank statement is typically going to be the oldest transaction in my system that's on my bank statement. Now, this might mean you might have some transactions that are in a prior month here in Ledger, but are clearing your bank in the month that you're reconciling. So that's really common with checks, especially if you write checks near the end of the month. Oftentimes, let's say you wrote a check yesterday on the 30th. Well, it's pretty likely that whoever you gave that check to didn't cash it same day. They're probably cashing it, maybe today, maybe tomorrow. Maybe they won't get around to cashing it for a few weeks. So it's very likely that you'll have transactions in the prior month and so we'll need to account for that. So let's go ahead and do just that. I have kind of our reconciliation already set up. I actually have a check here. We're going to be reconciling June of 2021, but I have a check here that cleared we actually wrote into the system on May 14th. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my date range up here. I'm going to set this to 5/14/2021. Now, the end of the date range then I want to set to the end of whatever month that I'm reconciling to make sure we get all our transactions. So I'm going to go through here and I'm going to set my date range here to June 30th of 2021. So my date range now is set. 5/14/2021 to 6/30/2021. This means by setting this date range, though only transactions within that time period are what I'm going to see. I'm not going to see any other transactions. All right, so we have our date range set. Now let's go ahead and get to the account that we're going to reconcile. So to do that, I'm going to drill down through my different categories. And I can see this if I have this home tab expanded. So I'm going to expand this. I'm going to go into Assets. And I have kind of layers on layers of categories here, so these will not be the same for you on your account. I'll go through to my different categories until I finally get down to my checking account. So I'm going to be reconciling the Central Trust checking account here. All right, so with this reconciliation, now that I have my date range set, I have my account that I'm going to be working on, I'm going to click this green Reconcile button. And this is going to bring me into the reconciliation mode. In this reconciliation mode, I'm going to see only the transactions that are within the time period that I selected. Now, I need to set up a few things up here in the statement section. There's the statement date, my starting balance, and my ending balance. So let's explain each of these. Statement date is kind of the date of your bank statement. So typically this is going to be the end of whatever month you're reconciling. So I'm going to set this to June 30th, 2021. Next, I have a starting balance and an ending balance I can enter. So the starting balance is the starting balance that's listed on your bank statement, and then the ending balance is the ending balance that's listed on your bank statement. So for this reconciliation I have set up here, my starting balance is listed as $329,796.45. Okay, that's my starting balance. Then I'm going to go ahead and put in my ending balance. My ending balance is listed as 327,837.53. Okay. Now, you might have noticed as I was entering those figures, this statement difference and off by were being changed. The statement difference, what it represents is the difference between my starting balance and my ending balance, according to my bank statement. So the difference between my starting balance and my ending balance is $1,958.92. Now you'll see that's equal to the off by for right now. The off by is basically saying, here's the difference between my statement difference and my selected difference, which right now is 0. Our selected difference, once we start clearing off transactions, is going to increase or decrease depending on what transactions we're clearing. So, if I were to clear a check, this check for $800 here, this would go to a negative $800. So I need to go through here now that I have everything set up, I need to go through and pick which transactions actually cleared the bank. Now, to find different transactions, this is a relatively short reconciliation. I don't have that many transactions on it, but if you had a longer one and you're saying, okay, well, I'm trying to find maybe I'm trying to find the transaction here for Derek Woods. Well, I could go ahead and type in his name, and I could see just the transactions for him. You can also do that for amounts. If you're looking for a specific amount, you can do it for memos. So this helps you find the transactions you need on your reconciliation. All right, so let's go through it here. Let's go through our reconciliation. So I have my fictional bank statement here in front of me, really just some notes I wrote down on kind of this reconciliation here, but you would have your bank statement in front of you. And so what I would recommend doing is kind of just starting at the earliest date on your bank statement and just walking through your reconciliation. So just going through, I look for my first transaction I have on my bank statement. So this one I have, it looks like a check to Best Buy Geek Squad. Now maybe that actually cleared the bank, let's say they were a little bit late in cashing it. They didn't cash it till, June 1st. Well, I see here on my bank statement, it was for $150. And sure enough, I have a check here that's listed for $150. So I'll go ahead and I'll check this off. And this is the process you would repeat. So I'd check it off here. I'd also recommend then checking it off on your bank statement, saying, okay, I found a match for this in Ledger. The amounts agree, the payee agrees, everything agrees. Let's go ahead and check this off and say, yes, we can verify that. So I've checked it off here. I've checked it off on my bank statement. And I'm just going to go through and repeat that process here. So I have this check for Derek Woods. It also cleared. I have, let's see, this check for Gateway Building Repair. It also cleared the bank. And I also have this check for Barbara Chison, and it also cleared the bank. So all these checks, all these 4 checks here cleared. Okay, then I go through and I also have my deposits on here. So we'll say, yeah, both of these deposits here, the one for $800 on 6/6 and the one for $500 on 6/30 also cleared. And so this is the process I would take. You'll notice as I go through here, my selected difference is changing, and it's also giving me a total for each transaction type. So I can see here's the total dollar amount of checks I cleared. Here's the total dollar amount of deposits I cleared. So this kind of helps you verify your information as you go through. Let's go ahead and wrap this up, though. Let's go ahead and say, all right, well, we also have some payments here. So this payment for CenturyLink Telephone also cleared. Same thing with this payment to Locally Gas Company. Here's this unnamed payment with no vendor. Probably should have a vendor, a payee on that, rather. But, these checks here to Locally Gas Company and Derek Woods, well, they were written just yesterday. They haven't cleared the bank yet. They're not showing up on our statement. So if something doesn't show up in your statement, don't check it off. We definitely don't want to go ahead and clear something that wouldn't be on your statement. So I'm going to go through here, and yeah, this bank transfer cleared the bank, and this payment, Family Electric, it also cleared the bank. And by doing that, this is kind of an ideal situation for a reconciliation. Probably something that, I'm going to guess this is something that probably doesn't happen super often, but when you get to the end of it, if this off by equals 0, you're set. Your reconciliation is cleared. But let's say this is maybe a less than ideal situation. Maybe, you get to the end of all this and it still says Well, you're off by $100. I'll go ahead and just tweak this a little bit just to do that. So let's say our ending balance is actually 937 instead of 837. Well, now my reconciliation is an imbalance. I'm off by $100. Where did we go wrong? Well, that's where, you have to kind of go back through your reconciliation and say, well, was I missing anything? Is there something that wasn't accounted for? What can I do now at this point? Well, if you get to this point in your reconciliation and you realize, well, I'm missing a transaction, or maybe a transaction's entered in the wrong amount, and I need to get this fixed. Well, what you want to do is you want to come up here to the orange $ button, and this is going to go ahead and take you back to the home screen while still saving your progress that you have here. It's not going to get rid of what you've done. Now, you can't click the save button. That's to actually save your reconciliation once you're done, once it balances out. Like, this is nothing to do anything right now. And if I click the cancel, this would get rid of anything I've entered here, and I'd lose my progress. So probably don't want to click cancel either. Again, if you want to kind of start with a clean start, cancel is a good option to use. But in this case, I want to hold on to what I've done. So I'm going to come back out to the orange $ here. And I'm going to go ahead and enter the transaction that I was missing here. So I'm going to go to new transaction, deposit, and let's go ahead and say, all right, well, we actually got some money to our mission fund that I forgot to account for. That came in on, let's say, the 15th, and it was for $100. And I'm going to go ahead and put this into my mission fund. I can click save, and then I can go drill down back through my assets, down into my checking account. And if I go to reconcile now you can see that deposit that I had entered is listed here. So if I were to check this off, my reconciliation balances. So it's just as easy as that. If you realize you have an error and you need to go out and work on a few things, just click the orange $ button. It's going to take you out of here so you can continue working. All right, well, this reconciliation clears. So if this reconciliation is all good, I'm going to click the save button here now. And now every transaction that I marked as cleared is now listed as being reconciled. Now remember that reconciled transactions, they can't be voided, they can't be edited, you can't do anything with them. They're locked in here at this point. So if you reconcile something in error, which should be potentially hard to do, as you see, but if you reconcile something in error, you do need to make a journal entry to undo it here. So maybe this mission fund I didn't actually need, maybe, oh, whoops, I didn't actually need that. You would want to make a journal entry that flips these debits and credits. So I would want to go ahead and I would want to credit my mission fund restricted account, and I want to debit my mission fund income account to kind of reverse that transaction if that were to happen. Now, another question we get a lot is, well, I completed my reconciliation. Is there a reconciliation report? And that's where our event log comes in. So I'm going to click on the reports icon here and go to the event log. So this is our event log. I'm going to show it for all of 2021. It wants to load in here for me. I need to refresh the page. There we go. Took just a second. Okay, so this is our event log. Now we do have a reconciliation report here. I'm going to show you that in just a second, but I want to show you guys the event log here first. So the event log is a total log of everything that happens here in Church360 Ledger. This is a great auditing tool. If you're not sure, well, how did this happen? What happened here? Okay, well, this is the event log where you can find all that out. So first thing you're going to see here is a timestamp of each and every action that happens. So every time a transaction is created, a reconciliation is done, something is deleted, something is added, something is edited, you're going to see it here. You're going to see when changes happen here. You're going to get the exact day and time it happened. You'll get then a list of, what kind of action was taken. Was something finalized, created, printed, destroyed? You can, again, filter this just kind of like you filter that general ledger report. You can go through and check or uncheck whichever items you want to see here. Okay. Then you have the type of thing. So was this something that affected an account? Was this something that was a transaction? Was this a reconciliation? And you can check or uncheck, again, whichever ones you want to see. Then you have this user section, and this is going to be a filter that shows us what user was logged in at the time that this actually took place. And so you can go ahead and, again, you can filter for this. Finally, you get the message, and the message is a description of what actually happened. So you can see there's different items here. You might notice that there's links on some of these here too. So if I'm trying to see a particular transaction, I can click on it here, and it's going to show me what transaction that's referencing when I click on that. Okay. Now, again, back here to the reconciliation report. So this said, you know, when I completed my reconciliation, reconciled 14 line items for central trust checking. So if I click on this, this is going to show me all the transactions that I cleared on this reconciliation, as well as the statement date, the starting balance, and the ending balance here at this point. So I could print this out if I'd like, if I want a printable version of this. And, you know, I can just go to File, Print, and that's going to print that out for us. Or I could take it out to Excel if I want it out in Excel. This is how you would get your reconciliation report. You just need to post your reconciliation first. This is going to give you a listing of all your cleared transactions then at that point. So that's our reconciliation report. And with that, that's going to cover our reports and reconciliation. So let's go ahead now and let's jump into our quiz. Just 5 questions for you guys. Again, no pressure on this. This is just to kind of see, did what I say today kind of stick with you? So let's go ahead and start in on question 1. Question 1. The general ledger report shows both active and voided transactions. The general ledger report shows both active and voided transactions. So a window is going to appear here where you can go ahead and answer this question. Just go ahead and answer that true or false, either one. Whatever you think the answer is here, I'm going to give everybody just a minute or two, just about a minute here to go ahead and answer that. And so we'll wait just a little bit longer here, get one couple more seconds. I see over half of us have responded. And give you guys just a few seconds. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out. All right. So true or false, the general ledger report shows both active and voided transactions. And it looks like the answer to that is true. And most of us, it looks like most of the responses here were true, so good job, guys. The general ledger report will show both active and voided transactions. So if you don't wish to see voided transactions on your report, you do have the option of exporting out to Excel and removing the voided transactions from there. So this is, so general ledger report, again, kind of like all the reports, flexible in that you can take them out to Excel and kind of edit this to what you need. Okay? So let's go ahead and continue on. Next question up. When running your income and expense reports, you can set the date down to an exact month, day, and year. So thinking back to the income and expense report, can you set that down to an exact month, day, and year? Is that true or false? Give everyone just a few seconds to get their answers in. All right. Let's go ahead and close that one out then. All right. So when running your income and expense report, you can set the date down to an exact month, day, and year. The answer to that is false. And with that, the reason why is your budget. Your budget is part of that income and expense report, and it can't be divided to kind of give you part of a month in the budgets. That's why you can go to the month and year, but not down to an exact day. Again, most of the time with your income and expense reports, you're running those on a monthly basis anyway, so typically you just don't need to go down to an exact day. All right, next up, the chart of accounts report can be used as a trial balance report. So if you're looking for a trial balance report, is the chart of accounts report a good way to go? Let's go ahead and ask that question here, true or false. The chart of accounts report can be used as a trial balance report. Okay, and pretty quick answers here from people. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys just a little bit more time in case anybody else would like to add their reply. Right, I'm going to go ahead and close this out. And the answer to that is true. Yes, this report shows the total credits and debits for each account. For specific sums or totals, the reports can be exported to Excel and modified. So you have the ability to kind of just take, your credits and debits, sum those up, and that's the whole point of the trial balance report. It's just making sure credits and debits equal. So making sure that our transactions are all in balance. And the trial balance report is going to help you do that. And the trial of accounts report will help you get that trial balance report. Okay, next up here is a multiple choice question. You're working with the bank account reconciliation and you find out that you need to enter a transaction. What should you do? Either A, click the save button, B, click the cancel button, or C, click the orange $sign button. So A, B, or C. We should click the save button, the cancel button, or the orange $sign button. What's the best way if you're working within the reconciliation to get back out if you realize that you need to add a new transaction in? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this one out. And the answer is C. 100% of us got that right. Congratulations, guys. Good job. So C, yeah, click the home button, which is the orange $sign. This will take you out of the reconciliation and not delete your work. Once the transaction has been entered, just reopen the reconciliation and continue clearing transactions. You only want to click cancel if you want to start over, and the save is only available for you to click if the reconciliation is in balance. So you wouldn't have the option of clicking that save button if you still need to enter a transaction, because very likely your reconciliation is not in balance then at that point. Okay, last question up. To print a reconciliation report, go to the event log. To print a reconciliation report, go to the event log. Is that true or false? All right, very quick answers here. I can see already most people have answered this one. So let's go ahead and see how we did on this one. Again, unanimous answer here, guys, and you guys have it right. It is true. A bank account reconciliation report can only be printed from the event log. So that's where you're going to find that bank account reconciliation report. Okay, well, good job, guys, on the quiz. Good. See, got probably most of those pretty much close to unanimously right. So good job. All right. Well, do you guys have any questions on anything we covered here today during the reports training? I saw a few questions come in over the course of the training. Looks like we did a pretty good job of getting those answered during the training, though. But if you've been holding any questions for the end, go ahead and ask those questions now. We are happy to answer any questions you guys might have. I'm going to go ahead and just go to the next screen, but again, keep typing your questions here. And I do want to thank everybody for attending today's Church360 Ledger webinar. I really hope you guys, learned something new, enjoyed the session today. If you do have any additional questions, I know we gave our contact information, both mine and Rod's, at the start of the session. But you can also, and I would say probably the very best way to get a hold of us is to get in touch with us here at our main support line at 1-800-346-6120. You can also email us at support@cts.cph.org. So you can go ahead and contact us there if you have any additional questions. One question I had here. The bank rec report does not show checks that have not cleared, and so is there a good way to get that? Yeah, we could do that. So let's go back here to Ledger, and let's go ahead and pull up that same time period I had. Let's go ahead and drill down to our account first. And Central Trust checking, okay, right there. And let's pull up that same time period I had. So that was from May 14th to May 14th of 2021 to June 30th. Okay, and we could take this now, export it out to Excel. And then what I could do here is out in Excel, this is a listing of all those transactions during the time period. I could do data sort. I could sort this by reconciled here and then remove any transactions that are not reconciled, that are reconciled, and this would then be our listing of all transactions that have not been reconciled. So very much, yeah, you can, if you want to see just the transactions that haven't been reconciled, absolutely you can get that. Just set the date range, export it out to Excel, get rid of the reconciled transactions, and this would be a good report for you. Okay. All right, and just looking here, don't see any other questions quite yet, but like I said, I'll give you guys just another minute or two. All right. If you don't have any questions, again, this is the end of the webinar, so feel free to head on out if you don't have any other questions. Again, I really want to thank everybody for attending today, for attending all the webinars we've had here over the past month on all the Church360 products. Both all members, Church360 members, Church360 Unite, and Church360 Ledger. We've had webinars over the course of the past month. So again, thank you. If you've attended any of those, any of these webinars, again, we really want to thank you guys for coming out. Like I said, we all hope you guys learned something new during the course of these webinars. I'm going to go ahead and close out the session. I don't see any more questions coming in here right now. So if you do have any questions, just get a hold of us here at this phone number or this email address. We are happy to help you guys out. You guys have a wonderful day. Take care and have a happy 4th of July weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.